Straight Life by Art and Lori Pepper. This is episode 56 of Straight Life. In episode 55, Art took part in an armed robbery. In episode 56, Diane informs on him. And I won't spoil it for you. It's exciting and well told. Here's Art's narrative. Diane had left me. The thought of Diane made me ill. She didn't have any heart at all, no spirit. She was always sniveling, whining, crying. She was using, but she never earned any money. I didn't want her to be a whore. I would never want a chick that would be a whore. We were living with some people and she just laid up and waited while I went out and burglarized some place or boosted and came back with the dope. Finally, she couldn't stand it anymore. I don't know what she couldn't stand. She wasn't doing nothing. And this boy that we've been staying with, moved to Orange. And he'd always had eyes for her. And I guess he must have told her to come on up there and he'd take care of her. So she split. I had two occasions at this period when two different Mexican hustling broads hit on me and told me they wanted to take care of me. All I would have had to do if somebody messed with them, go pistol whip the guy, just be behind them so they'd have a man. The girl would go out and hustle and get the money, and I would go out and get the dope and fix her and keep everything straight. They liked me because I was a famous musician and I was kind of handsome, and they'd heard I had a lot of heart. They said, "Man, what are you doing with that stupid broad? She's just laying up on her fucking ass, not doing nothing. And you're such a groovy cat. Why don't you come with me?" This happened twice. And these were chicks that made a bill, 100 a day at least. I didn't put them down, but I couldn't get involved with them. I knew I'd get hung up on the chick. They were both beautiful girls. I knew I'd start having a feeling for the girl, and if she was balling different guys, it would eat me up. I've always been moral. I couldn't change it. Old-fashioned. And I felt sorry for Diane. If I left her, she'd just die. She was such a weakling. So I came back to this place one day, and there was a note from Diane that she'd left. And I thought, thank God she's gone. She's made the move. Maybe now I can get myself together and be cool, support my habit. When I robbed the doctor's office in Studio City, I had got one huge bottle filled with phenobarbital. I didn't know this, but Diane had taken the bottle with her when she left. I heard from Rachel, Boy's sister, that when Diane went to Orange, all of a sudden she realized, well, I don't know what she realized, but I imagine she saw how disgusting, how weak she was. And so she took, I don't know how many of these pills. And Boy found her and he didn't know what to do. He and some friends carried her out to his car. They figured they'd dump her on me. They were driving along and the rollers stopped them, and Boy told them Diane had taken an overdose of sleeping medicine and they were trying to take her someplace where she could be helped. The cops took her to the Orange County Hospital. All she had left at that time was what she had with her: a blouse, a skirt, a little blue sweater, a pair of flats, and a purse. Everything else was gone. The furs, the dog. She nearly died. It's too bad she didn't die. It's too bad she didn't die the first time she tried to commit suicide, instead of the way she finally did die. She would have been better off. Diane never contributed anything, ever. She was totally inept at everything. She couldn't even keep house. The first time I went to Diane's pad when she was still married to her husband, it was just like a pig pen. It was a beautiful house with a pool and everything, but it was unbelievably dirty, junk and clothes. There was one thing Diane could do. She used to work crossword puzzles. Every day she'd go by the New York Times. Later on, I learned that was the epitome of crossword puzzles. She'd go to magazine stands and buy 10 or 12 of the most difficult puzzle books and sit and work them all. She was very good at that, but she did nothing at all to help me in any way, shape, or form. All the time I was supporting my own habit, I was able to do it. When I had to support hers, too, it just got too much for me. It got to be too much. Later on, when I was no longer with her, Diane stayed in Manhattan Beach with some friends of mine, Ann Christos and her old man, John James. She lived with them and was stealing money out of John's pockets, going through the house stealing their dope. Finally, they told her, no good. Either you're going to have to do something or get out. You're just too heavy. It's all we can do to carry our own weight. Do something or hook it up. See, when she was with me, she was never forced into anything. They told her, the only thing you got is your ass. Go peddle it. Want some dope? Go sell your ass. So she finally got up off her lazy ass and went out to turn a trick. She went into Manhattan Beach. There's millions of clubs down there. It's the easiest place in the world to turn a trick if you want to. She wanders around, looks around, has a few drinks at a few different bars, and finally she hits on a guy. And he's a vice officer. And she got busted for offering. The story of Diane, the great zero. The next narrative is from a friend of ours, Hirsch Hamill. I know Diane very well, or did. Diane was a waitress at Jazz City, 1956-57. It was a big club during the 50s. They struck up a relationship. Diane had a couple of children, so I understand. She claimed she gave her children up for art. It seemed more like she wanted to give her children up. Art was the excuse. Diane started out very pretty. She's Filipino and had those island features. But she smoked incessantly cigarettes, which later on deformed her lip. She had to have a lot of teeth taken out, and she had a little groove in her lip from the cigarettes. She had a very pretty body when I first saw her. Of course, later on, she didn't use anything when Art met her, and she was determined to straighten him out. Of course, she became a huge junkie, worse than Art. She lost her looks. Diane wasn't terribly bright, terribly intelligent. She was a waitress. She was very lazy. She used to just like to lay in bed. They used to get stoned on horse and lay in bed a lot. I remember she got this thing from the Akron, one of those pillows with arms on them so you can eat breakfast in bed, sit up and read. And she was just thrilled over that. Just thrilled. She was trying to help Art, but she gave up somewhere along the line. She didn't know how to help him. She was really a good person. She just lost herself to drugs, like a lot of people do. It's very easy. Here's Art again. I didn't know Diane had taken these pills. I'm running around East LA pulling burglaries and boosting and trying to get a hold of a gun, and they're going to give Diane 90 days or something like that. So what she does, in order to get out early, in order to make them like her and help her, she says, well, I'm Art Pepper's old lady. All the narcs had heard of me, and they said, oh, where is he? She said, he's in East LA robbing and stealing and just strung out like a dog. The police can't arbitrarily stop someone and search them without a reason. If they do, their case isn't any good. But when Diane told them about me, that was the show cause. And they went to their files and gave pictures out to the Heat in East LA, my pictures. And when I got busted, the show cause was Diane's statement. She had informed on me. At this time, I was so hung up. I had no one to go with me anymore. I was just walking the streets, burglarizing houses, going into stores, no car or nothing, just carrying stuff down the street, televisions, clothes, power tools, carrying them to the connection, hiding in alleys and parks. But then I did an album for Les Koenig, Smack Up, and I got some bread. And the next day I went to Stone Street in East LA. I went to Frank and Lupe Ortiz's house to cop, and I bought a half a piece of stuff. I got 2 condoms of stuff. The house was under surveillance, and the police had my picture in their car. I had had a student of mine drive me. He was parked 3 blocks down on Wabash, a busy street. I turned the corner onto Wabash. There's a Bank of America and a lot of people going and coming. I'm walking by the bank, and the car is just a few feet away, and 2 guys are walking toward me. I'm trying to pass them, and all of a sudden, somebody grabs me from behind around the neck and starts strangling me, and one of the guys drops a badge and says, "Sergeant Sanchez, LA Narcotics." There were 4 of them. McCarville, Salazar, and this guy who had me around the neck, Solagi, and Sanchez, who's a total illiterate madman. I'm trying to get my hand to my mouth. There was no way I could have swallowed this stuff because the guy had me so I could hardly breathe. But Sanchez saw me and grabbed my arm. I fought as much as I could and screamed, "Help, help, robbery," hoping some citizens would jump in and give me just enough time to get it into my mouth and swallow it. But I was dead. They had me. They were too strong. Sanchez opened my hand, and there were the 2 quarters. They got me in the car and drove about 3 blocks. I'm handcuffed with my hands behind my back, and this ape, Solagi, he's sitting on my right. Sanchez is driving, and McCarville is sitting next to Sanchez. All of a sudden, we stop. I fall forward, and Solagi smashes me in the stomach with his elbow. Sanchez whips out his gun and hits me in the head with it. He clicks it and says, "I'm gonna kill you, you motherfucker, you stinking bastard. Open the door." And he yells, "Open the door, open the door. Throw him out. Run, you bastard. If you don't, I'm gonna kill you right here." I said, "Oh, man, what are you doing?" I said, "Just take me to jail and book me, man." He said, "We know where you got the stuff. You got it from Frank and Lupe Ortiz, and you're going to tell us that or we'll kill you." I said, "I didn't get it from anyone. I had it. I had it before I went to the pad." They drove me to the Hollenbeck station. They parked in the lot, and Solagi said, "Get out." I went to get out, and he kicked me in the legs, so I fell. I would have busted my teeth out because I fell on cement, but I turned and hit my head. They grabbed me and dragged me in. They had 2 holding tanks in the Hollenbeck station. They took everyone out of one of them and threw me in it. Then Sanchez pulls my belt out and hits me in the stomach and the back, and he knocks me down again. They said, "You're going to cop out on these people or we're going to kill you." I had about $180 on me. They took my money. They knocked me out and left. When I came to, I crawled to the bars and hollered at the 2 bulls on the cells, "Please undo the handcuffs. They're not supposed to put you in a cell with cuffs on." They wouldn't even answer me. I said, "You motherfuckers." The guys in the other cell said, Hey, putos gavachos, you motherfuckers. Why don't you help this guy? They screamed at the bulls, but they wouldn't do anything. This was in the afternoon. At about 11 o'clock that night, 2 detectives came to the door. They said, "What is this?" The bulls on the cells said, "Well," and they started whispering. These guys were from downtown, from robbery detail. One of them took out his handcuff keys and undid me. I was cut. Blood was running down my wrists. My hands were swollen. There was no feeling in them. They said, "You won't try to get away, will you?" I said, "No, I can't do nothing." They said, "We don't want to handcuff you." They put me in a car and drove me down to the Glass House, which is the jail downtown. They booked me in. They no sooner booked me in than I'm dragged out of the cell, and here I am in an office with Sanchez. He put me through all kinds of shit again. He said, "You'll talk eventually." They took me to the old county jail, and this booking in took 18 to 20 hours. I get into the hype tank, and in the morning I'm vomiting bile, and all of a sudden, here come all the dope fiends to the cell door, and one of them throws a newspaper at me. Jazz musician busted. Art Pepper, renowned jazz saxophone player, was arrested by so-and-so at such and such a place. Pepper said he bought the heroin from Frank and Lupe Ortiz. Then I realized what Sanchez meant when he said, "You'll talk, we'll get you." They just put it in the paper that I had ratted on Frank and Lupe. So now I'm laying there. I'm so sick I can't move. I've been in jail a lot of times. I've seen people killed. I've seen them beat to death with thick blood running out of their ears and eyes, every bone broken. That was what was waiting for me. I looked at these guys. I said, "Man, there's nothing I can say." Sanchez told me he was going to get me. I didn't say a word, didn't say nothing. And this is what he did. "If you're going to kill me, kill me." I did not rat on them. I've never talked, ever. I laid there and thought I was dead. They went outside and had a conference. Then they came back. They said, "We're going to wait and find out from Frank for sure." When Frank got busted, they put him in the tank that I was in. Maybe they thought he would be so unthinking he'd believe the story and have me beat up real bad. And then, before I died, they thought I would cop out on him. But he came by the cell and he said, "You didn't say anything, did you, Art?" I said, "No, you know that." I told him what had happened. He put the word out. Don't let anything happen to Art Pepper. He was an intelligent guy, and we had a good friendship. I testified for Frank at his trial. I said that when I went to his house, I had the dope on me, that I had just stopped by his house to help him move, which I had done. And it helped Frank, and he straightened everything, and that saved my life. But to this day, there are people who read that story in the papers who believe that Art Pepper is a rat. And there is nothing that ever happened to me that was more horrible. When I went to testify for Frank, I went undercover. The narcs didn't know what was happening. Before they did know, I was already in the courtroom in the custody of a deputy sheriff. When I came out, as I walked with the deputy, I told him, I'm afraid. I'm afraid these detectives are going to kidnap me and kill me." He said, "Don't be silly. Nobody would try anything like that." We walked down the hall, and around a corner, there's Szilagyi, Sanchez, and McCarville. They're sort of lounging in the hallway. I tell the sheriff, "There they are." They give me a cold look. They walk up to the deputy and flash their badges. They tell him, "We like to take Pepper here. We've got permission from the jail." They made up some story. Szilagyi says, "It's okay. It's all clear." Now they were going to take me out and they might have killed me. But what happened next was incredible. It was like a movie. This deputy sheriff unbuttons his holster, puts his hand on his gun, and says, "I'm sorry. He's in my custody. I brought him here. I'm taking him back. You can come along with us, and when he gets back into the jail, you can present your papers and take him from there." They tried everything. They joked with him, and they grabbed me, and I said, "No, no," and held on to the deputy sheriff. "Don't let them take me." And they laughed. Sanchez glared at me. But this guy realized that what I had told him was true, and he would not let them take me. The deputy took me to the jail. He told the desk sergeant, "If anybody comes for this guy, make sure it's legal and everything's in order." They took me back into the jail, and then Frank came, so I was vindicated with everybody in the tank. The way it ended up, they finally got Frank for some ridiculous thing. They framed him, but it had nothing to do with me.